Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Carolyn Dean Live Radio Show, featuring Dr. Carolyn Dean, along with host Ginny Sanders,
also known as Ginny Almighty,
who joins Dr. Dean on tonight's program. Phone lines are now open at 602-666-6027. That's 602-666-6027. And we'll be taking your calls from around the world and right here in the USA.
Welcome everyone to Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here on this Monday, April 6, 2020. Once again, here on the face of the earth, so gloriously happy to be alive, to be thriving, to be healthy, knowing that we are surrounded and somewhat overwhelmed with our current predicament of having not sufficient immunity to handle the virus that is circulating now called COVID-19. Some of us not having that immunity, but that's what we're here to talk about, is how to build that immunity and how to thrive in the midst of this incredible challenge, not just physically through our immune system, but also mentally and also spiritually through the confidence and power that we have in our own health, vitality, and well-being. And, of course, we are being upheld and led once again by our very own Dr. Carolyn Dean, author of The Magnesium Miracle and many other books on natural health, wellness, and vitality, having been a leader in the health freedom movement and a advocate for natural health and natural remedies, safe solutions for many, many years, 50 years. There's not enough that can be said about Dr. Dean, and I hear people hear me say it week after week. For those of you who are new to the show, just finding us through whatever mechanism that you are discovering us this evening, I do want you to know that Dr. Dean is not only a medical doctor, but she's also a naturopath. She's an herbalist. She is a acupuncturist. She understands the body in powerful and unique ways. And what she understands more than anything is the body's inherent impulse for life, ladies and gentlemen, life. And by giving the body the basic building blocks, it will construct its own wellspring of wellness that will sustain us non-negotiably through all things. So before I bring her on, I just want to let everybody know this evening we will also be joined by our guest, Carol Baggerly from Grassroots Health. We're excited to have Carol back. She was with us last fall in October. She's got a great update for us. And I will also remind you that Dr. Dean does not give medical advice on her radio show, but what she will do is talk to you about what she would do if she were in your shoes. We will open the phone lines later once we do our preamble and our introduction to our guests and talk about our important topics this evening. And you can also avail yourself of our chat line, which is at studioa@achieveradio.com, to type your questions into us. If you are listening to this show through the archive, please also note that you can email your questions to questions, questions, plural questions, at drcarolyndeanlive.com. And the very dapper, delightful, and deliciously wonderful Melody Rose will get your question. She will translate it into an answer and also make Dr. Dean aware and available to answer should you have a question of serious complexity. So without further ado, let me just also say that I want you to be sure to check out our website, rnareset.com, for our new product additions, most of which include our back-in-stock RNA drops and also our Mighty Mash, which many people have been asking about. It's on the website for you now, limited quantities, so please avail yourself if you're interested. So without further ado, I shall bring on our very own and most wonderful Dr. Carolyn Dean.
Thank you, Ginny. Yes, we've got a jam-packed show. We do have a guest, our very own Carol Baggerly, coming on in a few minutes. But let me start with my preamble, as I say every week, hoping that the layering of this onion will get through to people. We want you to refer your practitioner. Just email us to ask how you can go about that. We want you to use referral candy so that you can get friends and family on the program, on the protocols, on the complement formulas, because, yes, we are and have been building your immunity for years, and this is what people require. Get your blood testing done with the home blood test kit. Carol Baggerly will talk about this more when we have her on in a few minutes. Remember our magnesium deficiency survey showing that of over 25,000 people answering, 67 people have anxiety, and that is increasing. Insomnia, and that is increasing, is 66.2%. Muscle cramps, 51. Heart palpitations, 47. Restless legs, 46%. Headaches and migraines, 33%. We know people are suffering. People know they are suffering, but we do have answers. These symptoms are of magnesium deficiency until proven otherwise, and you can prove they are magnesium deficiency by taking Remag. And building your immunity, perfect words by Ginny, how to build your immunity. And we've talked about this, me and Ginny. This is this COVID-19 crisis. It's a world wake-up call to learn how to build your immunity, to access natural remedies, and take responsibility for your own health. We've gotten too complacent. The countries that aren't suffering as much, they listen to their government, and they stay healthy. But anyway, Mighty Mash on the shelf, absolutely, totally important for people who are building their gardens now. It's spring in most of the U.S., and you want your garden now, because if you don't have access to fresh food, then where are you going to get it? You're going to get it from your own garden. Mighty Mash is on the shelf, and the instructions are on the bag. It's pretty easy to follow. We continue to do the Mighty Mash experiments here on the Upcountry Farm, and it is quite awesome. We're using the turmeric that our own Houston dug into a turmeric patch while he was doing the radish experiment. He had some extra mash, dug it into the turmeric patch, and the farmer said he's never had such awesome turmeric, and people were really grabbing onto the turmeric. And in our very last market of last week, we can't do the market anymore. We can't do enough of social distancing, so our farmers doing a lot of home deliveries and box deliveries at the markets. During the show 2 weeks ago, Ginny and I talked about the homeopathic kits. That homeopathy is very important in these times. If you have any sort of cold or flu snuffle, you can take homeopathic remedies. That's your first line of defense. And then come to find out, when Ginny put in the order for more, our representative of the company, his name is Wayne, said, due to the current situation, it may be weeks or months until we can fulfill this order. With such demand for kits, we're having a hard time maintaining our stock levels. So that shows you again how people are grabbing the natural remedies, because there's not that much available medically, although I do support the use of hydroxychloroquine for people with serious problems with the lung symptoms. Ginny's got a couple of emails from me with the links to our homeopath that we refer to, Mary Aspinwall, on constitutional homeopathic care. You can have a consult with Mary. Mary has a study group on Facebook and a newbie course on Homeopathy World. So avail yourself of that information. Now that so many people are sitting at home, we've got plenty for you to do. Also, Ginny will put up a link for the hydrogen peroxide nebulizer information. Last week, Thomas Levy, he's a medical doctor and a lawyer. He is not going to give you any sort of false information. So this is important information on using hydrogen peroxide, 3%, nothing higher, in a nebulizer. You may have heard our March 23rd radio show with Robert Scott Bell, and he talked about using silver in a nebulizer. You do not use silver with saline water. You would cut it with distilled water. The salt and the minerals in saline will neutralize the silver. So in lieu of this wake-up call and access to natural remedies, one of those natural remedies is vitamin D. We've tried to support people with their vitamin D intake using Blue Ice Royal. And we never knew how much vitamin D was in the Blue Ice Royal. That's partly why we started this home blood test kit with Carol Baggerly's group. Her group is called Grassroots Health, and she started doing testing on vitamin D after she discovered with her health condition that she was very low in vitamin D and wanted to make the world aware of the need for vitamin D testing to determine if the level of vitamin D in our blood, does that match our clinical symptoms? And when she heard from Dr. Mercola that I was a big proponent, as you know, of magnesium, and that magnesium is required for most of the steps that activate vitamin D, we all got together. We're offering this home blood testing kit with huge, huge discounts and coupons so that people will get their test. There's been no time that's more important right now to get your testing, to know if you are getting the nutrients into your body. Personally, my vitamin D test was very low, even though I live in Hawaii. I don't go out in the sun a lot, but my vitamin D was low, so I'm taking extra vitamin D, which is very important in these times of the virus. That's why Carol is here, so we can discuss vitamin D and how to increase our levels. So with all that having been said in one breath, I'll get back to Ginny. Ginny's going to introduce Carol, and then we're going to get on with our program, taking questions from the mailbag, from chat, and phone questions as well. Over to you, Ginny.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're just so pleased, and of course the last couple of weeks we've just had a whirlwind of special guests on our show, and we're just so glad that Dr. Dean has the resource and the network to be able to do that and to present you once again with more and more compelling information, not only for yourselves. We know it's almost sometimes like preaching to the choir because we know many of our listeners are very astute, but now with 182 different countries under the impact of this, we find that we have a challenge to meet the requirements of educating our brothers and our sisters and our family members, and people who may not have had an ear to hear us before may have an ear to hear us now. Well, when you go to do that, the most important thing you want to do is have accurate information, and you've heard extremely accurate information on this show for the last couple of weeks. Of course, Dr. Dean's very accurate, but we're talking about the overwhelming information that we have to present people, not only for how to maintain their immune systems, but how to respond in the event that they would feel that they would have symptoms, and how to respond in the event that they would have symptoms that would be accelerating. We've discussed it all, and we're going to continue to discuss it until we get everybody where they need to be. That's Carolyn's commitment. That's mine, and I know for a fact that that is the commitment of our very own and most precious Carol Baggerly, Grassroots Health, who is with us this evening. And Carol, your phone is off mute, and you are free to move about the cabin and begin speaking.
I'm not sure we're going to be able to get everybody where they need to be. Let's see, I do believe in an afterlife, I think. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Carolyn. I'm delighted to be here, and it's such a beautiful opportunity. It reminds me of a situation I had in a manufacturing company one time when I was asked to help them implement a new MRP, Material Requirements Planning System. And after getting going with it a little bit, I mentioned about the opportunity, and the director of materials says, Carol, how can you see this as an opportunity? It's a major problem. So we do have a major problem, and I have to commend absolutely everybody that's on this call or that even will listen to it, because it means you're already above the curve. You already really need to be complimented for the empowerment that you have used in order to get yourself more healthy, to get more educated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you. However, what we look at right now is a lot of people, even the well-educated and involved, are afraid. And they're afraid of the virus. They're afraid of the impact on themselves, their families, and the financial consequences. Just today, there was a note in the news that the insurance industry was planning to raise the premiums rather significantly. And what this came back to me again, which is partly what I want to very much take a few minutes to talk about, is the institution we currently live in, mostly around the world, with regards to health, is broken. It doesn't work. We have all the rewards in the wrong places. The rewards are for using various drugs to prevent a disease which has already occurred, not to prevent something from happening in the first place. When I was working with a medical office a couple of years ago, we looked at how to prevent some particular situation, and every single one of the prevention capabilities had to do with taking some kind of drug or another. And none of it focused on exercise, none of it focused on attaining healthy weights, none of it focused on any nutrients whatsoever. And there is a lot of experience that I have had with others in recognizing that when the whole reward system is broken, it really is easier, believe it or not, to start anew. And that's really what Dr. Dean has done. It's what Grassroots Health has done. And we are expanding that by starting anew. We are actually building an infrastructure, not just of vitamin D, but of nutrient research and implementation, so that you and everybody can say, I'm rewarding myself with health and feeling good and saving my money by paying attention to what nutrients that we need in order to be healthy. All of our material that we present on our website, grassrootshealth.net, has been scientifically based, very much like Carolyn Dean. One of the compliments we get frequently from our users is, you're trustworthy. Well, in part, I can't afford not to be. We want you to pay attention to this as to give you the tools to help really be healthy. So I wanted to indicate a couple of steps here. Why do we have this major vitamin D problem? we have a major vitamin D deficiency, and I will call it an epidemic all over the world. And the real reason for that is because about 150 or so years ago, maybe 200, we came in out of the sun. And it has taken a long time for many of the people involved in health to recognize that we lived in the sun from the beginning of the creation of humankind. Without it, humans would not have developed. And all of a sudden, to plop us in out of the sun in terms of industrialization, in terms of wearing clothes, in terms of saying, oh my gosh, the sun is bad for you, and scaring people to death, we have inadvertently created a major, major health epidemic for the world. We weren't meant to be inside. When Dr. Haney, another D researcher, and others reported on a study of vitamin D levels down in the area of the country or the universe around the equator where people actually still wear very few clothes, where they're still out inside a lot, they found that not only were they healthier, but their vitamin D levels, their serum levels, the 25-hydroxy vitamin D, were in the range of somewhere between 40 and 80 nanograms per milliliter, or 100 to about 200 nanomoles per liter. Not the current recommendation from the government that we should be at 20 nanograms per milliliter. Every research paper we have published since we started this organization or since that data came out has shown the increase in the ability to reduce diseases like breast cancer. Breast cancer, which is where I started, we could reduce it by close to 80%. 80%! With nothing more than getting vitamin D levels from 20 up to about 60 nanograms per milliliter. Our current lack of knowledge in our government about what it takes to be healthy don't help us be healthy. I really am still focusing on that. And when we saw, for example, that we could actually prevent 40 to 60% of preterm births, again with vitamin D, we went to the FDA to see how we could enable a claim to be put on vitamin D supplements that would be able to say it may help you prevent preterm births. We were told that there is a law that requires the FDA to use a dosage in order to make a claim. And as many of you already know, and if you don't know, look on our website, the dose response for vitamin D varies so much that the appropriate measure of your vitamin D level is not how much you take. It's what you achieve with your serum level. And they wouldn't accept the research showing the reduction in preterm births because the way we measured it was by the achievement of a serum level. Again, that was heartbreaking to me to see those people so hurt. The other thing that's very significant, and I don't know how many of our listeners have dark skin for one reason or another, there has been a big focus on socioeconomic issues, access to health care, et cetera, as a result of dark skin. And again, with this population that we had of pregnant women, they were quite a number of people who were dark skinned. And once they got their serum levels to the same level as the much lighter skinned people, their preterm birth rate was close to the same. It was not a socioeconomic issue. It was a vitamin D sunshine issue. It takes longer in many locations for dark skin to absorb enough vitamin D from the sun. The evolution of getting the darker people to the whiter people took many years. So again, that is the way that we need ultimately to get to. In the meantime, we have to correct this by doing One thing which is almost immediate, which is taking some kind of supplement of vitamin D. The second, hopefully we'll get to someday, but we are not ready to do it now, is some kind of food fortification or lighting that we can have in our houses or in our offices to make up for that. With the start of the vitamin D information, it became quite clear that there were many other nutrients that people were taking, and we wanted to see what the interaction was. And as I think I've mentioned, all health is personal, all of it. I got into D because I had cancer and realized that was a major culprit with why I had breast cancer to start with. My husband had atrial fibrillation so strong that we were afraid he was going to die. And by the way, it was one of the fastest growing monetary clinics in the United States today are AFib clinics attached to hospitals. And nowhere in any of those clinics do they recommend the person take magnesium. Fortunately, we found such an educated person right here in San Diego, and she says, oh, it can be stopped with that. And kind of like the cancer and vitamin D, I said, what? Are you teasing me? And I was scared. I was scared for my husband, for the kind of loss, for the damage, etc. And we did it, and he has not had an AFib attack since. His magnesium and potassium and hydration, which is also very important, were changed. So what we are looking for right this minute is to help expand the world, the message, everything about how these nutrients interact, due to the fact that we've done so many more testing things of different nutrients over the last year. We already see scientifically that people who are taking more vitamin C, up to about 1,000 milligrams a day, can take considerably less vitamin D to achieve a given serum level. That says they interact very, very, very clearly. The same is true with magnesium. The same certainly has been true in the past with magnesium and vitamin K combined. So we're seeing unarguable interactions between these different nutrients that we all need. And at this point in time, we aren't far enough along to say how much of one versus how much of the other brings you the required health outcome, but we know they interact. So the whole idea of nutrient research and how you do it has to change. We can no longer afford the money and the time to look at just vitamin D because it's affected by vitamin C, by magnesium, by omega-3s. And that balance and that interaction is very important for us to do. The way we see right now going, in order to quickly help people that are in great need, is everybody right now knows, everybody that's listening to this, knows you can log on to our website and see what your vitamin D level needs to be. You can enroll in a number of projects that would enable you, everything we do, test vitamin D. And Dr. Dean has built a beautiful project, including the magnesium and the omega-3 and the TSH, and the opportunity to be able to get that out to more people is what we want to do with the targeted trial and a pilot kind of, sort of the kind we have with probably more fixed rules and regulations, is to make sure that the groups that we can address, there are a lot of groups that are calling us right now saying, how can you help me? And they are groups that do not have money. Their members do not have money. They do not have the resources. So what we are looking for is a way to put this trial in many, many, many communities and areas that can help thousands of people quickly. And so we need sponsors, very simple, because we've already developed the mechanisms to make it happen. The other part of that trial,
Yes,
I'm sorry, I just went on so long.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's very great groundwork here. But yes, tell us more about the trial specifically. Is what we're doing with Grassroots Health part of the trial?
Yes, you definitely are part of the trial.
Okay.
We are not looking at your group explicitly for occurrence of the COVID, but we will. We've already added that to the questionnaire. And the other thing that will be part of the trial will be the test of much higher intake levels that once we get the trial up and going, which literally will be just a few weeks, the IRB thing that has to approve what we do will say is fine, do it, so forth and so on. So
right, the IRB is a institutional review board. So
yes.
we committed, my company, New Capstone, committed 2 years ago, actually, to do university research, and that does drag on. And when Carol says, well, we've got to do this, and I'm sorry it'll be a couple of weeks, it's like music to our ears. So wonderful. And, Carol, when she started, and correct me if I'm wrong, you started with the measurement of vitamin D, and after that, did you add the omega-3 fatty acids?
Yes.
And then
we
with
did because...
Go ahead.
That's fine.
We added the magnesium when we came on board. Grassroots Health added magnesium, and then we asked to add the TSH because we were finding with the Remag and the Remite that people's thyroids were improving. And what more are you adding now?
The biggest thing that we are adding right now with this new trial would be much higher recommendations for intake because there was recently, and there have been over the years, published papers showing that one that we just published or sent out about 2 weeks ago from Patrick McCullough showing that intake of 10,000, 50,000 IU a day for long periods of time is perfectly safe. So we can tell people that, which is still our method, which is scientifically people can be told that this is safe. And if you're not getting where you want to get, so forth and so on. But within the study, we actually want to break the study into groups of people who are interested in taking that 50,000 IU a day, as well as we will be testing the co-nutrients such as magnesium and vitamin C we will be adding. We haven't been testing that before. We know people take it. But those are a couple of biggies.
Okay, so let's get right to our first question. Charlie wrote in and said, I've read a lot about vitamin D supplementation and toxicity causing heart palpitations. I've also experienced this firsthand. My question is this only because it lowers your body's magnesium, or is it more involved than that? And he goes on to say, I'm a healthy male. I work outside, but whenever I get a blood test, my vitamin D is low. I'd like to get this number up, but every time I supplement, it gives me palpitations. I've been taking magnesium for a few months and have seen many benefits, but vitamin D3 still doesn't work well for me. So, this is the kind of the subgroup that I've encountered, Carol, where I learned about the absolute requirement for magnesium in people who are taking any vitamin D. Even we have people who say, I'll lie in the sun and I'll get a heart palpitation if I don't take my magnesium. So you've got your personal experience with your husband. I'm sure he was on a lot of vitamin D. He had the heart palpitations, took the magnesium. So what can we tell Charlie about his experience?
First of all, I have to be very honest with you and say I am not a doctor. Best I am is a scientist, and we do lots of research. The heart palpitations is not a thing that we have heard from our cohort. We have had people who have had digestive issues or whatever based more on the supplement that they are taking than anything else, but not directly associated as far as we could see with vitamin D intake. They are related, however, as we see, and as Dr. Dean, I know that you know more in depth from your experience than I do. But I would suggest that Charlie work with a naturopath or someone to help investigate what's going on, because it's certainly not a common situation with vitamin D.
So because we stand out with our magnesium deficiency, then perhaps we're attracting a lot of people with magnesium deficiency, and they're just not able to convert their vitamin D. I mean, what I'd say to Charlie, obviously, is, are you taking Remag? How much are you taking? And if you take more, will that make it easier for you to metabolize your vitamin D and not pull it away from your heart? Because that's what seems to be happening. That's the first thing to investigate, is how saturated are you with vitamin D. And again, the testing that's done with Grassroots Health is a whole blood magnesium test, which seems to be, well, it's much better than serum magnesium. It's even better than the RBC magnesium because 90% of the magnesium in a cell is in the mitochondria, and there are no mitochondria in red blood cells, so it's really not the next best choice. And our research with the university research we're doing is to show people that the ionized magnesium testing is far superior. So we're all trying to figure this out, and as Carol has said and will continue to say, we're the only ones doing it. The pharmaceutical companies aren't going to test for nutrients. The government is not going to test for nutrients. When you talk to the NIH, the Office of Dietary Supplements, they're mainly looking at nutrients to make sure you don't have a deficiency. So that's why they'll say their vitamin C RDA recommended dietary allowance is 60 milligrams, 60 milligrams. And when you ask them, well, why don't you test for what's going to keep people healthy? And they say, no, that's not our mandate. So they turn their back on doing any research that's going to help people stay healthy. So seriously, Grassroots Health is the only thing I've come across in these many decades that is going to help us find out clinically and what's going on with your body. And Carol, I want you to tell us now about the other part of it. There's a blood test. It's just a finger prick. You drop your blood on a piece of cardboard, for Pete's sakes, and send it in. But then there's the questionnaires. Tell us about the questionnaires. Yep.
The questionnaires that people respond to, I also, for all of those that are listening that are already participating, thank you so much for taking the time to fill these in. And sometimes they may seem a little bit long, but it's based on your data about what's going on with your health that allows us to create the scientific report saying, it depends on this, it depends on that. So first of all, a big thank you. But the questionnaire is based on what we put together with the researchers, the scientific people in the fields of nutrients, to say, what do we need to know about these people? And some of the information is very basic, like how old are you, and what sex are you, and how much do you weigh, where do you live, latitude-wise. So you fill in all of those questions, and you also fill in the specifics about the supplements of any kind that you are taking and by the specifics, we actually have to know the brand name and the compound. Like some brands, brand X might have 3 different compounds of vitamin D that they use, for example, and we have to know which one you're using because they have different ways of interacting in your body, and they have different ways of us calculating the information about how much you are getting. And the other part, we have developed a dose-response mechanism back again to the magnesium. As I'm sure all of you know, there are so many different magnesium compounds, not the product names per se, but there's certainly what Dr. Dean has with her magnesium chloride, which is a liquid. Some people have tablets. Some people have this, that, and another. They're made somewhere in them. They have magnesium, but they have other substances as well. And what we're already finding is that they work quite differently with people. You have to take more of this one versus less of that one. And we're also asking all of you that are participating specifically with the magnesium is to do some interim or short-term tracking that we've built a special module there to say, how are things going today? Because as somewhat unique, although vitamin D has many things that happen really fast, it goes for pain relief literally within weeks, if not faster. Magnesium has many actions that you as individuals can sense, the symptoms of certainly pain in the legs and certainly insomnia and anxiety can go away very quickly. And whereas most of the questionnaire things we do every 6 months, we don't want to lose that piece of information. So, but you fill out the questionnaire and then you hit the button that says, here it is, and then you send in the test kit, which we then make sure fits with what we need to have in it, and then we forward that to the labs that we work with, and they send us back the results, and we send those to you just as quickly as we can. So sometimes it's a little hard to get started, but then it goes very smoothly.
Right, and this is very important. I think the whole questioning of consumers and patients and customers, it's a lost art. I know with a doctor having a 7-minute appointment, they're not even going to ask you, more than 1 or 2 questions because they're not going to get paid for it. There's so much horror in the current medical model. When I was in practice, I would have hour-long appointments and really find out what was going on. So this is what these questionnaires are about. They're uncovering what's really going on with a person. And now with computer algorithms, it is amazing what information we can put together, the conclusions we can draw from this. And having an IRB, an institutional review board, having the doctors and scientists on board that Carol has accumulated, these papers are going to be published. They're going to be scientific papers. And like she already mentioned about these preterm births, trying to prevent them, she'll do all this work and then go to the government and say, hey, look, isn't this amazing? Let's do something about it. And they say, oh, sorry, this is our little box. This is our blinkers go to here, and we're not going to be able to help you change any policies. So that means again and again and again, we are on our own. But with an organization like Grassroots Health, then we can be assured that we're going to get the information that we need to make the right choices. So I'm
the other part there that excuse me, go ahead.
I was just going to get Ginny in on this to see if we had questions, but you finish up, Carol, please.
Okay, I have one other thing I really want to highlight. One of the things that we talk about or we hear about on the radio or whatever a lot of times is personalized medicine, not health, but medicine. and you look at what the current systems that are offered by the medical groups look like, and they are not about you, they are about them, and they are sending out you medical data. And one of the things that we have built is a system which is meant to be used by all users with scientific information, and we've already gotten lots of compliments on, certainly you can show me my results, but you show me my results as a function of what I've been doing. But we also present data to the user, every single user, saying, here is, let's make pain because that's such a common thing. Here are the pain ratings of a group of 10,000 people based on their responses and based on how much vitamin D they're taking. And we plot, we stick a little blue button right where your result is and your pain level is, and then that enables the individual to say, looks like if I take more vitamin D, it might reduce my pain a lot, or it looks like I'm already at the level where it's probably as good as I'm going to get because I can see thousands of other people really right there. So that personalized health really is a matter of being able to take information that's based on other people doing things like you are doing, and you're being able to see it analyzed and presented directly to you. Mm-hmm. The thing we'd like to see in the future is that the medical profession, or whoever I will call them a partner right now, not a doctor even. I mean, I'm getting hung up on the word sometimes, forgive me, but I really want consultants out there for individuals to say, the individual can print out one of these reports. They can take it to their consultant or whatever and say, this is what's happening. I need a little bit of personal one-on-one advice because you know more about X than I do. That's where we see this going. That's what personalized health means to me personally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. Okay, Ginny, what's going on chat or on the phone lines?
Excellent. 602-666-6027 is the phone number to call this evening if you do have a question for Dr. Dean or Carol about tonight's topic and things that apply to you personally. I want to give you a chance, if you're on the line right now, because I see a lot of new callers, you've got to hit *5 on your keypad, *5, to raise your hand in the studio, and that will let me know you're on the phone, and then I can put you on so we can fit you in here during the course of the show. Now, the other thing is we've got a couple questions here, Carolyn, about vitamin D in general. People are always interested in how to interact, Carol, with the sun. What is your view on suntan lotion, and what do you think about the SAD lamps or sun tanning in a tanning booth to boost vitamin D? And I know those are all kind of just a melee of questions, but they're kind of cobbled together. Can you address those?
I would love to. Thank you for asking. First of all, looking to the future ever so slightly, May is our Sunshine Month. So we will be putting out a whole bunch of newsletters and specific information on the value of the sun for your health. I'm a total believer, kind of like I started with, which is we were meant to use the sun. The biggest negative is that you don't want to burn, period. That's it. It creates more than vitamin D in your body, and we don't even know yet all the things it does. There was a presentation by Dr. Weller not recently, but really some years ago, saying that being out in the sun creates nitric oxide in your body, which helps reduce the risk of heart attacks. Nitric oxide isn't even an output of vitamin D. It's from the sunshine's interaction with your body. And we need it. We desperately need it. So we have to take advantage of the opportunity to get it. And the other thing that to be informed about is the current medical profession or whatever says, oh, yeah, make sure you're in the morning or the evening. Well, facts are that the UVB rays from the sun aren't even available to you no matter what latitude you're at, except kind of between 10 and 2, which is when you're told to stay out. So there's a lot of misinformation out there about the sunshine. So I think you should get it when you can, but 10 to 2 is the prime time to get something that happens. Be aware that the older you get, your skin becomes less able to create the vitamin D for your body in your skin because it has, in one sense, less fatty tissue, so you may still need to take a supplement. And we have a number of people in our projects that use tanning booths, and they're perfectly fine. But one of the interesting things there is they use them regularly, except in the winter they have to boost their vitamin D with some kind of supplement because they don't have time to do that kind of tanning, so forth and so on. I am pretty negative about sunscreen because all of sunscreens have chemicals in them which almost all of them, not all, are not good for your body. And mostly people do not put on enough to really help prevent anyway, and what they end up with, unfortunately, is a sunburn because they think they've been protected from the sun when, as a matter of fact, they haven't. So basically get what you can. We published a paper after a beautiful seminar. We did a continuing education seminar a couple of years ago. A doctor, Alexander Wunsch, flew over from Germany to talk about the treatment of health with light. Not sunshine, but light. Different light and wavelengths, what they can do for this, 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 and this. It was a beautiful presentation, and he knows an awful lot about what the whole light spectrum of the sun can do for you. So take a look at that, and we will highlight that again in May.
Okay, wonderful, excellent responses. Let's just say 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Carol, you'll be with us into the next hour, correct?
I cannot give up the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Okay, very good, excellent. All right, wonderful. So we'll pull over into the next hour. Now, a guest is asking, I take all the complement formulas. I'm 64. I do not take additional vitamin D. What is the recommended dosage? So, Carol, you want to take that?
Sure. We get asked it all the time. I have to respond with, I don't know. It depends if you take any vitamin D. I'm sorry, I didn't hear clearly, Jenny. If you has she taken any vitamin D at all?
She does not take additional vitamin D, none.
Does she know what her serum level is?
I would imagine not, because she says Medicare does not pay for vitamin D screening.
Okay. Again, on our website, you can take a look at a chart we have out there which shows that in order to get up to that minimum of about 40 nanograms per milliliter, which really is a minimum, which the scientists on our panel, 48 of them worldwide, have agreed, is it would take about 5,000 international units a day for about 50% of the population to get there, all right? If you want to go for 80 or 90% of the population, that's also on the chart, and that's going to take closer to 8,000 to 10,000 international units a day. So somewhere in that range is what we have seen as being a result of intake, and the only way to know if it's right for you really is to measure. However, both of those numbers, the 10,000 IU a day is considered by the Institute of Medicine the no observable adverse event level. And we have lots of people in our project taking that, as well as lots of people taking 50,000. So that's the beginning.
And what you've already mentioned is that people who take extra vitamin C might need less. People who take magnesium might need less to achieve the 40 nanograms.
Exactly.
So this is what we're trying to find out, and it's not being done by any other institution or any other body. We are the experiment.
We're also more healthy than most if you look at some of our published papers, to be able to say that, those who are at this level had a considerably lower occurrence of some disease. So we're delighted.
Right. And let me just say, in the last minute before the top of the hour, go to grassrootshealth.com and to get the news.
.net.
Grassrootshealth.net. And how do people get your newsletter, which is quite wonderful?
They need to authorize us to send it to them. At this point in time, if you kind of go down to the bottom of the home page, there's a little box you can click that sign up for the news, and you enter your email and go from there.
Perfect. Okay, we're at the top of the hour. We'll be back in, what did you say, Jenny? It's only a 90-second break, so off you go.
We'll be back with Hour 2 of the Dr. Carolyn Dean live radio show, along with host Ginny Sanders, right after this brief station break. You can also get updates and resources online by visiting drcarolyndean.com.
Psychic radio, holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is achieveradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/achieveradio.
What city plays?
The old categories. They don't apply anymore. And we're just superhuman, discarnate things right now.
What city plays?
We're well beyond the categories for men and women right now. And we're just superhuman, discarnate things right now.
Give me body.
Bring back the body.
Give me body.
Bring back the body.
Give me body.
I do advocate immediate fast to bring back the body.
Give me body.
Bring back the body.
Give me body.
AchieveRadio.com.
We return now to the Dr. Carolyn Dean live radio show, along with host Ginny Sanders. Phone lines are open during live broadcast at 602-666-6027. At 602-666-6027.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2, Dr. Carolyn Dean live here this Monday, April 6, 2020, and we're so glad to have you along. Those who've listened through the archives, if you're inspired by what you're hearing and would like to participate in our Grassroots Health project, knowing that, yes, it's research, but first and foremost, the thing that's most important about it is that you're going to get your own metric. You're going to have, and I'll tell you, the staff is fantastic that works with Grassroots Health, and, of course, our customer service team is fantastic. You're going to buy the kit, which is on our website, rnareset.com. You can go to the page that says research. You're going to learn all about it. You're going to buy the kit. You are going to get $214 worth of discounts on our products that match the things that we're evaluating for, which is your magnesium level, your TSH, your vitamin D, your omega acids, fatty acids, which is fantastic. So you're going to have your own health metric. you're going to get trackers that you can answer on a regular basis. They're more simple than the big questionnaire going into the gate that is going to help you track your symptoms. You know, we see this all the time. People, you know, they get on our products and they come on for one thing, like I have high blood pressure, and then the next thing you know, they're like, gee, I'm sleeping better and my skin is cleared up and my hair's thicker, but my high blood pressure is still so high. And it's like, well, your body's responding to what's happening, and if you keep track of your improvements, pretty soon you're going to expect a overall improvement, and that improvement is going to happen. In addition to that, you're going to get tons of support from their staff, our staff, and you're going to have these incredible things. Now, as it was mentioned earlier, yes, that's right. Doctors don't, Medicare and things like that, they don't pay for vitamin D screening. But here, let me just say it for everybody who's missed the recent bulletin. Welcome to a new planet. We're on a new planet, people. Right? Okay, everybody pay attention to what's happening. Institutions have collapsed. The medical community isn't what everybody thought it was. You are in charge of your health now, like it or not. Participate in the program. Dr. Dean graciously giving you an equal, and by the way, I'm just going to get Carolyn to second this and say, no other sponsor's doing this. No other sponsor is practically paying for your testing by giving you all these product coupons so you can afford to actually do the program and then be responsible for your health, which I know a lot of people here are on there. That's the great thing about what we're offering. It's incredible what you can do, participate in, and the support that you're going to get by participating in this. Okay, now, welcome back to Carol Baggerly, Grassroots Health. Welcome back to Dr. Carolyn Dean. Yes,
I want to complete a story. When Carol was talking about in her early years of practice that she would see a patient for an hour, and she was only supposed to do for 7 minutes, she was called in, this is in 1984, by the authorities and disciplined for spending an hour with a patient. She was ruining it's like real estate. You know, you sell your house for lower, the other neighbors get mad. You've lowered the thing. She was because she statistically was doing an hour with each patient, it ruined what, Carolyn? It ruined the profile?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of things there. Yes, I informed them when I started to go in practice. I guess naively, I just said, I'm going to be doing counseling to keep people healthy. What are the codes I can use? How much time can I spend? So they told me, and then about 6 months later, investigated me because I was spending too much time with my patients. And then the other shoe dropped when the Revenue Canada investigated me for being a low-income doctor. They thought I must be hiding something because I was reporting a low income, but I had a full practice. So yeah, they get you coming and going because you're not fitting into the general zeitgeist, and this is what Carol has dug herself out of, having, the horror of being diagnosed with breast cancer and being told, well, there's nothing we can do but this surgery and this drug and this chemical. And how did you find out about vitamin D in your search right at the beginning?
I didn't find out it right at the beginning. After I had the treatment, and had seen what damage it did to me, the treatment. And I read a lot. I'm a science person by nature, and I could see that the treatment itself had long-lasting effects. I currently have permanent damage to my lungs and my heart as a result of the chemo and the radiation that I got. So it's like I could see that. And my motto with starting new things, and I've started a number of new organizations, has always been, there's got to be a better way. And I didn't know what it was. I truly did not know what it was. And 2 years after having had the breast cancer, I was still researching all day, every day to see what what's out there. And one of my sons at the time was a very unendowed staff person at MD Anderson as a biostatistician. And he made the beautiful statement to me one time, "It's the best we've got." And I said, "It's not good enough." So 2 years, 2007, I went and had a normal kind of ordinary routine physical, and my doctor at that time told me I was low in vitamin D. She actually measured it. How about that? And I said, "What's that?" And she says, "Well, you have osteomalacia." And she says, "That's connected with that." And that surprised me somewhat because I exercised then, I exercise now, and I'm reasonable weight, so forth and so on. But anyway, I went home and went back to research. And then I still apologize this very day. It took me 2 more hours before I keyed in. Google was still around those days. I keyed in vitamin D and cancer, and up came a publication of a paper that Dr. Cedric Garland right here in San Diego had just published, showing that with a vitamin D serum level of about 60 nanograms per milliliter, you could prevent 50% of breast cancer. And I sat there, and I looked at it, and I said, "This can't be true." And I started to shake and whatever, and I called up a friend. I know a lot of university people, and I said, "Is this guy a flake?" And she said, "Carol, he's not only not a flake, he's been doing this for 20 years, and he's been discouraged because he thinks nobody's listening." I said, "I'm listening." So then started the whole excursion of meeting with the researchers, and there was a beautiful trial at the National Cancer Institute in March that Dr. Tony Norman, one of the starters of the whole vitamin D research, invited me to, and I went, and there were several days of listening to beautiful research about vitamin D and cancer, some of it in test tubes, some of it with people, some of it whatever, and I cannot say it was all exciting, but it was all, oh my gosh, this has tremendous opportunities with it. And then at the very end, Dr. John Milner, a very delightful person who was leading the research group, said, "Where do we go from here?" And this was 2007, and I was totally unfamiliar with what came next. Was we need to do more research. And I exploded. Yep. I just pressed my speaker button, and I stood up, and I said, "Where is your sense of urgency?" And I sat down. I was ready to give up. And then the most phenomenal thing in the world happened, and this is the blessing I have of working with all these researchers now. The meeting was over, and all of a sudden I had a line of vitamin D researchers standing with me saying, "How can you help us?" Like the researchers care. They know it. And they need help this day in getting the word out in all fields. And it's not vitamin D. It's everything. Yeah. So we're delighted to do that.
Oh, boy. Amazing. Let me clear something up. When you said vitamin D was low and your doctor said you had some form of osteo, which osteo was it?
She said osteomalacia, which would be the beginning of osteoporosis, as I understand it.
No, malacia is different. Do you think she said osteopenia?
That's what she said. That's what she said. Thank you.
Okay, good. Just clear that. And you gave the date of that NIH Cancer Institute. So then what date did you begin grassrootshealth.net?
About a week later.
I see, Jenny? See, Jenny? That's so cool. Good for you.
Yeah. I had several other businesses, so I knew how to go about that.
Wow. Jenny, any questions? And then you can take over. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Questions and phone calls. No, that's great, Carol. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful. Okay, now we've got a couple people asking for a recommendation on vitamin D, what brand to take and this and that. We're going to get to that in a minute, so just hold on to that. We will get to that. I've got a couple questions here I want to do before we miss, and then we're going to go to our phone calls as well. One question, is vitamin D necessary for weight loss? And does a lack of vitamin D contribute to weight gain? Carolyn, either one.
I hear you. I don't currently have any information that validates that. I think the weight issue is much more complex than just vitamin D, as many people who tried it know. It's the diet that you eat. It's certainly sometimes the genetics and so forth and so on. So there's no immediate feeling like you don't need to eat so much or whatever the reason is there. So unfortunately I can't address that. I would, but like
that could be something that would come up in the research, wouldn't it? If people
right, exactly. Yeah, so we haven't seen any major things there.
Okay,
we are putting modules together for a ketogenic diet, though, because a coaching group wants to have that. So we will be doing that as well.
Okay.
I do have one comment I'd like to make, though, on. We read a lot on the web and whatever that, you can get vitamin D from your food, etc. I would like to respond to that, if I may. In currently food substances, the biggest source of vitamin D probably is fatty fish, and like salmon or something like that. And the most it has in it per serving is somewhere between 400 and 500 international units per serving, and I have just told you that you need at least 5,000 IU a day. That means you'd have to have 10 servings of salmon a day. So our food development over the years has not, except if you want to go to whale blubber, okay? If you want to do that, you can actually get toxic. But do not look to food for a main source of vitamin D right now, because our food is not fortified well enough to do that.
What about cod liver oil? I'm in the generation that grew up with a teaspoon of cod liver oil every morning.
And if they have measured how much vitamin D is in it, that's good. And take a look at what it says on the bottle. It doesn't automatically have vitamin D in it anymore.
Okay. Back to you, Ginny.
Excellent. Okay, let's do this. Let's take a couple phone calls. Let's go out to area code 732. 732, you're on the line with Dr. Carolyn Dean and Carol, Baggerly Grassroots Health. If you could give us your name and then state your question or comment.
Hi, my name is Diana. It's so nice to speak with you again. I have two questions, actually. One is for Carol. And I wanted to ask, the other question is for Dr. Dean. My first question is, I had myself tested twice in 2019, and my vitamin D25 hydroxy levels were at 67 ng in September 2019, which was reduced from 135 ng, and my doctors were really scared because they thought I was toxic. So my doctor at the time told me, do not take any more vitamin D. We need your levels to come down to 30 or 40 NGs. But then he also said, once we get the levels down, I want you to supplement with a Blue Bonnet liquid calcium magnesium citrate. Now I haven't started doing that because I've been taking all of Dr. Dean's supplements. But I'm wondering, should I actually be retested and then follow the doctor's protocol, or what would you suggest, Carol?
What we have presented is, again, on our website, a recommendation of a group of vitamin D, very experienced researchers who are both MDs and biological kind of researchers that say the level that we see based on health outcomes is between 40 and 60 nanograms per milliliter, and that's what that recommendation is based on. It is safe. Different conditions really do require different serum levels, so that's why many people very simply refer or go for the highest one.
Okay.
And 30 back again to why there's a cutoff at 40. If you take a look at the data we have, even on preterm births, there is such a beautiful curve that shows the number of weeks gestation, the higher the vitamin D level just goes up and up and up until it gets to 40, and then it essentially plateaus. After that, more than 40 doesn't really buy you anything for preterm births. On the other hand, we have demonstrated with our research as well as RCT research on breast cancer that getting up to 60 nanograms per milliliter greatly helps reduce the cancer. So anyway, I would not ever go less than that myself.
Okay, because I think the reason why I have osteoporosis and my numbers were really, really low, so they're wanting me to. They wanted to put me on Prolia, but I'm trying to do it all without Prolia because I don't want to be on an injection for the rest of my life.
I think that's very wise.
I mean, because I don't want to depend on that. I prefer to do things naturally, so I'm trying to follow Dr. Dean's protocol, which I think would be better. But I'm a little concerned because every time I go see them, they say, we need to get these numbers lower, or we need to get these numbers at a certain level. You need to go on Prolia. You have no choice. You're gonna fracture.
You always have a choice. The other thing that I would like to highlight, well, you do, don't you? I mean, that's how we live.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, well, I've actually, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One of the really saddest moments I've had in a long time was I did a report. Actually, I was in Europe at this time, and I was showing here's what the results are of the participants who have had breast cancer recurrences while they were in our project. And at that point in time, there were 7 of them. And what their data showed was 6 out of the 7, 6 had stopped taking vitamin D. Now, why on earth would they do that? Because their doctor, not being informed enough, told them to stop. So we've got to me, my mind says individuals have to be educated enough to know what they need and consult with the doctors as opposed to depending upon them so much for everything. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. However, I don't know if I need more vitamin D. How do I know? How do I determine whether I do? I know when I need more magnesium because I start to feel.
Well, this is what the research is about, Diana. This is what Carol is saying, based on the experience and the research and the data. Women, to prevent a recurrence of breast cancer, should have stayed with their vitamin D and should have stayed with the level of 60 nanograms. Breast cancer seems to be a specific cohort of people, whereas something like preterm birth, they were okay at 40 nanograms. But to prevent cancer, if you've got a family history of cancer, if you've had cancer, the research is showing you need to be at 60 nanograms. And as for this business about the doctors just say, well, this is what you have to do. Well, that's all they know. They don't know this research. They aren't here on the call studying it. And this is where you're getting more information. And it is difficult when you go into the doctor and they say, well, you have to do this. It just messes with your mind and gives you another conflict that your brain and body has to deal with. And as we're taking a magnesium and calcium because of your bones, well, yes, you need the magnesium in the form of Remag, and yes, you do need some calcium, but it's the 600 milligrams you get in your diet and or with Recalcia, because the magnesium that they're recommending is only 4% absorbed, and what's not absorbed is going to go into calcification in your soft tissues. So that's it. You can go to the archives and re-listen to that 10 times and really get it into your brain that we're here to support you with common sense rather than what's come down the pike in allopathic medical information, where they base, I mean, what do they base their information on? Nothing to do with nutrients, and only to do with what drugs will treat what symptoms.
Exactly. Yes, that's very true. I agree with you. Yeah, very true.
And that's why the institution is broken for health, and that's why I really want to help us all set up a totally different health institution so that you can not only get the test, you can get the knowledgeable treatment, you can actually get a special kind of insurance to cover it, rewarding you for being healthy.
Exactly. Well, it's a totally different thing in this country. It's not, you don't get rewarded for being healthy. They want you to take the drugs.
Right. Yeah.
It's
it's like you're not important to them unless you follow their recommendations and prescriptions, and unless they can find something wrong with you. They're very gleeful to find something wrong with you so that they can prescribe. So, did you have a question for me, or did I answer that in my little rant?
Okay, no, but I'm glad you gave that additional feedback, Dr. Dean. The other question I have is, I usually get regular bottled water at the supermarket at Whole Foods, but this time my son and daughter went to pick up some water and they didn't have it available. So I want to know if I need to adjust my magnesium into this new water, because it has magnesium chloride in it. So do I need to? I'm now at 3 teaspoons of magnesium. I'm sorry, no, it's magnesium sulfate. I'm sorry. So this one has magnesium sulfate. Do I need to reduce the amount of magnesium that I use in my?
How much?
How much? Let's see if it says. It doesn't really say. It just says that it's made up of reverse osmosis purified water, electrolytes, which are potassium carbonate, potassium bicarbonate, and magnesium sulfate.
It wouldn't have anything in it. They have to put the amount if it's above a certain number of milligrams. So they've just sort of splashed some magnesium sulfate near the processing, near the bottling. So it's got nothing in it.
Oh, okay. So I don't need to worry about reducing it. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful night, ladies.
Good to hear from you again, Diana, and you're sounding stronger and stronger. It's wonderful to watch you flourish. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, hon.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Over to Ginny.
Excellent, wonderful. Thank you. Yes, here I am, and I want to just read a couple questions off the chat line, then we're going to go to our next callers. One of the comments, Carol, that came for you is, excuse me, I'll read that in a minute. I'm in the same boat as the previous emailer. That must have been the email that you read earlier, Carolyn. I bought Natrello vitamin D and took a capsule of 2,500 IU for 2 weeks. My heart palpitations increased. I've been on the complement formulas for over a year, so I need to figure out that balance. And I think what we want to reinforce, Carol and Carolyn, is that this is when you do the testing. Is that right?
Exactly. You've got to.
Yeah. It's something
Let me just say to Charlie, yes, with that history of taking vitamin D and it affecting you, and I know the Natrello form, that's the one I take, 2,500 units. You'd have to try to find something with a much smaller dosage and build up, or just take 2,500 every 3 days, and just sort of sneak up on this as you determine how much Remag that you have to take to keep everything in balance. So it's just taking smaller amounts, taking smaller steps, and knowing that, yes, as you said, your levels are low, so your body probably needs the vitamin D, but then you just have to do the experiment with yourself to know the balance between the vitamin D and the Remag, and make sure you probably should be taking like 3 teaspoons of Remag. Did you have something on that, Carol?
No, I think you very clearly said it. I do have a bias towards, or bias isn't exactly the word. I think that the deficiency in vitamin D and the levels are very, very clearly associated with health outcomes. And so the urgency that I see is for taking more magnesium as fast as he can to get that up in order to help reduce the palpitations.
Right, very good. Okay, Ginny?
Okay, very good. All right, excellent. All right, back to our phone lines, area code 480-480, great state of Arizona. You're on the line with Carol and Dr. Carolyn Dean this evening. If you could give us your name and then state your question or comment. Hello, our precious 480 person. Okay, we will press on and we will go to area code 619. 619, you're on the line, great state of California, San Diego.
Hi, this is Cedric Garland, and I've really been enjoying this program because I see Carol, who has led the zeitgeist that took an obscure scientific finding that we had in a medical journal that could have stayed on a dusty shelf for decades, if not a century, and created a zeitgeist, or someone that was either Dr. Dean or Jenny mentioned that word earlier, and she's driving this zeitgeist today. So it couldn't be more exciting to me to hear you talking about it and Carol telling the story of it. And there were few meetings that I ever attended at the NIH that made my heart beat faster, and the one that did was when Carol Baggerly spoke truth to power and asked the assembled scientific illiterati of the National Cancer Institute, where is your sense of urgency? It just stopped the room. A room of maybe 100 scientists were frozen when someone asked that question, as she so eloquently did, launching this zeitgeist. But at any rate, so much for the comment. I'd like to ask Carol and Dr. Dean and others who might wish to comment on it. Is there going to be a zeitgeist for vitamin D with respect to COVID-19 or the prevention of acute respiratory disease, as has happened with the use of vitamin D and other micronutrients for the prevention of cancer?
Yes, Carol, please. We do have to get to that question. Thank you so much for bringing it up. Go ahead, Carol.
First of all, we would not exist without Dr. Garland, so anybody who can clap or compliment this gentleman, he's marvelous. Thank you, Cedric.
Sure.
We want to set up a very special program for, as I mentioned earlier, and it's not clear enough to give it a name, but yes, we need to institute an entirely new trial and everything to say, we've got to start tackling cures and halt. Like we can't just bring people's serum levels up. We're really going to be targeting the prevention and or cure of this with using nutrients, especially starting on this one since we know so much about vitamin D and we know people are so deficient. So, yes, there will be a new one.
Good. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Cedric.
And I know with the group that I'm working with, the orthomolecular medicine group, we're talking about vitamin C, and we definitely talk about vitamin D and magnesium and zinc. So the levels for vitamin D, let's just give out some numbers. Are you saying that you tell people to go to the 50,000 vitamin D3? Because as I understand it, 50,000 is the D2, which is synthetic.
No. There are 50,000 IU D3 products, and that definitely is what you should have.
Very good.
For this, and those are available. We want that to be part of it. One of the things that we are ready for as a society and as health people, and certainly healthcare people that are interested in nutrients, there is another significant effort going on down in Brazil that I've been familiar with for years, Dr. Columbra has helped reduce the incidence of, or not the incidence, but the side effects of, and in some cases actually cure multiple sclerosis by having very, very large doses and consequently levels of vitamin D in these people. And it has to be under medical supervision. This is not something you do on your own. But regardless, what he's demonstrated has been phenomenal. They can actually show brain lesions that existed prior to such treatment, and they're gone afterwards. This is enormous. The other thing is they actually have a user group on the prevention or the cure, as it were, of autism. So it has effects there, higher vitamin D levels. And if you take a look at what he has done, what I see, Carol, as a result of what he has done and what we've been able to do, and certainly other people with large groups of people, is it's time to move on to disease cures or disease pulse or whatever you want to call it with nutrients. We are currently stuck with, taking more than that is dangerous. Well, it's not. You do have to watch it, and you do have to measure parathyroid hormone levels, PTH levels, and calcium levels, and back again to the orthomolecular thing. We also would like to work with them to put together this next phase of a monster way to help make people healthy.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's wonderful. And so important, because I know the pushback we're getting just for saying people should take more vitamin C is ridiculous. We have fake news headlines saying that our group, OMNS, is promoting fatal doses of vitamin C. It's a big mountain to climb, because there's something about, I guess, the pervasiveness of medicine that has put down nutrients for so long in order to gain their foothold, that people, they're in a quandary. They don't know who to believe. So we're here to move this zeitgeist along, Dr. Garland.
I'm glad you're doing it. It's so important to the future of humanity.
Yes, yes. Now, can you give us some more words, Dr. Garland, on your work? Or Carol thinks so highly of you. Tell us what you're doing.
Well, what we're doing actually with the grassroots health cohort is having in existence the only cohort in the world where we can actually test the effect of people who are taking doses of vitamin D, such as 20,000 or 40,000 international units per day, which you cannot find in any other cohort. So if there's a question such as, is COVID-19 less likely to attack people who are taking, say, 20,000 or 40,000 or even 50,000 IU a day of vitamin D3 USP? Is it, judging from serum levels and self-reports from the cohort, does that prevent the disease? Or does it reduce its incidence? And also, does it reduce its case fatality rate? And right now, short of a clinical trial, which would take quite a while to get going with respect to the time course of this epidemic, the only way to get this information quickly about larger doses of vitamin D against COVID is this cohort. So that, I think, is a exciting consequence of having the cohort. And it's also demonstrated that you need to get into the high dose range, 60 to 80 nanograms per ml, to produce very substantial effect on the incidence of cancer, particularly of the breast and colon. But also, we think it's quite likely that you need to be at substantially higher levels of vitamin D in your serum than have been traditional in the population to inhibit the reproduction of viruses and stop either incidence of COVID-19 or keep it from killing people. And as we see the pattern move through the world, it's almost identical to that of the cancers that we've been studying, breast and colon. For example, northern Italy is known for having a high degree of air pollution and a high latitude in the 40s and above, and they were ravaged by COVID-17, 19. But the southern half of Italy, below Rome, seems to have almost escaped it. And the main difference is partly Chinese migrants being more frequent in the north, but it's much greater than that because it spread from the industrial centers, even places where there were no Chinese migrants. And to us as people, scientists, who have looked at the role of sunlight and vitamin D deficiency in the genesis of cancer, when we see the identical pattern for this disease, we're struck by it. The parallel in the United States is the New York experience, which is awful and going on now. And it was exactly the same story for breast cancer. The mortality rate for breast cancer was more than double in the borough of Manhattan, New York, than it was, say, in Arizona or New Mexico in any county. And we're seeing the same pattern, this high latitude plus air pollution combination, which characterizes the New York metropolitan area as the place where the COVID is prevalent. We just saw it move from the borough of Manhattan out to Long Island, which is also heavily hit with breast cancer and colon cancer for the same reason. It's the generation of electricity by a number of sources in the New York area needed to support the high density of the New York population, but which results in the inability of the atmosphere to transmit ultraviolet B light that's needed to make vitamin D. So New Yorkers in general are almost undetectable, or at least down way low on the vitamin D scale. I'm guessing at this time of year around 7 or 8, maybe 10 as most as an average. And that's why they've been so ravaged, in my opinion, by COVID. But we need to prove it. We can't conjecture about it without having at least a means of proof. And the cohort that Carol and her staff have assembled is the answer to that question. So I'm looking forward to working with Carol and the cohort to provide an answer as soon as we can as to whether we should be supplementing to prevent the incidence or death from COVID-17. And to me, that's the biggest question that we face now. I think we've established that it prevents breast cancer and also prevents it from spreading in a patient who has breast cancer, which is a very hard thing to do. And the same for colorectal cancer. And if you look deeper, it's also true for bladder cancer and lung cancer and several others that are kind of almost unexpected would be related to vitamin D deficiency, but on a world scope are. So that's been established. It's now a matter of dissemination of those findings, but we still have to establish that vitamin D can maybe save us from the repeated scourge of COVID and other coronaviruses.
Right. Now, my brain lit up when you said high levels of electricity in the New York atmosphere blocking UV radiation. Please tell us
more
about that.
High levels of air pollution.
Air pollution.
Sulfate. That's air pollution.
Got it. Oh, of course. Yes.
When you have many people confined to a small area, all of whom use electricity, whether it's for their lights or their elevators or their electric ranges, you have to produce a lot of electricity right nearby. And there are companies in the vicinity in New York, also in adjoining states, in Connecticut, that produce a huge amount of electricity. But they do it, historically have done it by burning coal from the Ohio Valley and Pennsylvania. Yeah. And that leaves a substance in the air, sulfur dioxide, which is converted to ammonium sulfate, and we call it acid haze. It's the precursor of acid rain. And one thing it does is to acidify the lakes of New York. But the worst thing that it does is to prevent the people who live there from making vitamin D in the natural way by photosynthesis in the skin. And so the atmosphere there blocks the making of vitamin D. It also provides condensation nuclei to form clouds, making the area much cloudier than it would be under normal conditions. That also blocks the vitamin D synthesis. And to make matters even worse, there's an Arctic air mass that comes down from Canada during the winter and some of the spring that also makes it impossible to get outside and expose any skin just because it's too cold. You take all those things together, and the indoor lifestyle, most dramatic in Manhattan, in the concrete canyons where almost no sunlight is available, and you end up with the highest rates in the world of cancer of the breast and colon. And now we're seeing exactly that pattern for COVID, and nobody knowing just where to turn. But we think there is a place for people to turn. It's not exactly a panacea. It probably would not eliminate COVID-19 infection or death, but it's pretty likely that it would substantially reduce it. And the more we reduce it, pending the discovery of a vaccine, the more lives we can save. But we need to test it.
Right.
There are so many opportunities with vitamin D. One quick thing, Carolyn, is Dr. Garland has put together a lot of graphs, one of which he calls a smiley curve. And one of the reasons we got into the omega-3 testing was because really the vitamin D curve of the incidence of type 1 diabetes is almost zero at the equator, and it goes up very rapidly around as you get higher up in the latitudes. And so have been working with research groups to say, maybe all of those expensive and very whatever drugs that you are taking for type 1 diabetes, it's enormous. So thank you again, Cedric, and for all the work that Carolyn, you're doing with all of your magnesium as well.
Right.
Well, thank you for getting this word out.
Yeah, the timing is perfect because this is not our first virus, the COVID-19. No. This is not our first rodeo. We are developing the resources and the cohorts and these projects for what may come, and we may be able to prevent it. We've created such a perfect storm of nutrient deficiencies on all levels. Selenium, zinc, magnesium, the vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids. We've processed our food out of all recognition, and now we are reaping those benefits. And this is what we're trying to get across. And Dr. Garland, you'll like this quote: "The scientist rigorously defends his right or her right to be ignorant of almost everything except their own specialty." So that's what we're running up against. It's
true.
It's true. And what you and Carol are doing is creating this project where we're looking at as many nutrients as we can, and with the computers, we're able to sift out this data. I mean, this is incredible what you're telling us about New York and the incidence of breast cancer and other cancers and COVID accumulation. So it's all beginning to make sense, and we're here to help bring people out of this storm.
I believe it.
And you are a delight to work with. Thank you.
It's great. Jenny, get in here. We're having a little love fest. What do you have
I'm
to
just
say?
basking in the glow. It's absolutely glorious, and it is so true, and it is perfect. And the only thing I wish we could do would be the Vulcan mind meld, to take all three of your brains and then put them in the general vicinity of everybody else's brain so that they could hook in, hook up, hook on, and get with the program. and not wait around for medicine or anybody else it's standing at any press conference at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to figure out what the heck's going on, but to really take control of their health. That's what we want. And even if you cobbled a handful of some vitamin D, some magnesium, get some zinc rolling and a little pico silver, you're going to be eons ahead of this game. Agree?
I would certainly enthusiastically vote for that.
Yes. Okay, Dr. Carolyn, stay on. We'll see if we have any callers with questions or chat questions. We don't want to waste your resources. This is wonderful. I'm so glad you came on. Jenny, any chats? Any chats or phone?
One of the questions that came up was, can you talk about the relationship and the use of, again, going to the multiple nutrients? We haven't talked about zinc tonight. And can we talk a little bit about vitamin D and zinc?
Carol, would you like to do that?
Let me start out. What we've been doing is on my Monday radio shows. We had a group from the Orthomolecular and Medical Society, and Dr. Tom Levy brought up that it was the association of hydrochloroquine and zinc that was really helping people, because hydrochloroquine will open up the cells, and then the zinc will shoot into the cells and disrupt the virus. So he was saying that around exposure to COVID, people could be taking 30 or 40 milligrams of zinc, and certainly there's zinc lozenges that people use for any virus, any throat infections. So there's a long history of zinc and the immune system, but I'm not aware of zinc and vitamin D, Carol or Doctor.
I am not at this point in time aware of that. I do have another research paper that I have read that I think is significant, that brings in yet another thing that we are doing with our diets and things, which is there was a paper published quite some years ago that said that the virus, coronavirus, and it certainly wasn't 19, would not even attach to the cells of the lungs or any place else if the pH level was in a normal alkaline range. And obviously you can't go in and test your pH level, whatever, but it appears that there is some validity to the assertion that if you do a urine sample first thing in the morning, that what you have is an alkaline-based urine, then that is a good reflection of what's in your bladder, which could possibly refer back to the cell's ability to even accept this COVID virus. It's beyond my biochemistry, but I wanted to bring up the whole alkaline thing up because I know that you pay attention to that, as do other people. So be healthy in many ways, I think, can help that.
I have nothing to add to that. I agree with you.
Very good. And let's talk about the optimal form of vitamin D that everybody, product recommendations, or Carolyn, what are you recommending right now, and where are we at with that? Because several of our callers and listeners have chatted in about that.
Right, and someone already mentioned the one that I've gone to. I was just taking the Blue Ice Royal, which is a fermented cod liver oil and butter oil. But I was afraid our people weren't getting enough vitamin D, and that's why we joined Grassroots Project. And now when I found out the abysmal level of my vitamin D, I went to the Natrello vitamin D, which is from plant lichens. so I'm doing 2,500, 2 of them a day to get my 5,000, and I'll do my testing soon and see where I'm at. I'm glad to hear that at 50,000 IUs of vitamin D, you can get a vitamin D3. I always recommend that because the synthetic D2, you may get your levels up and then they'll just plummet, apparently. So Carol and Dr. Garland have much more experience with different types. What are you recommending, Carol?
The only thing that we recommend there is really that it be D3. What we have had the value of doing with our project also, though, is the if it's listed as D3 and it is a brand that people can trust for various reasons, we really don't see any real difference in the brands other than that person's preference or availability and are mixed with other products. So the other thing about vitamin D, though, is what people recommend is, oh, I'll buy this and it's got this, this, and this in it. And we always recommend buy something with only vitamin D in it because you might need twice as much as somebody else. And you don't want to take twice as much of X along with that. So I think that's really important as well.
Dr. Garland?
I agree completely. I notice there are some vitamin D3 products out now that are USP, that have been tested for purity and correct concentration by the U.S. Pharmacopoeia. And if you wanted to go beyond what Carol just mentioned, that might be one choice. But the reality is, it seems like so far that the vitamin D3 is vitamin D3, and as long as it's vitamin D3, it's labeled, ideally, it's a product that's used in interstate commerce, so there's some protection for the validity of the label claim, then it's good. When I buy vitamin D, I do make sure to get it from a supplier that's outside of my state, because then I know I've got the federal protection that comes from the interstate transfer. But other than that, vitamin D3 is vitamin D3. The important thing is to take the right amount to raise the level in the blood to, in my view now, 60 to 80 nanograms, particularly in the context of the COVID-19 virus, and not worry too much about the brand as much as whether you're getting enough of it and confirming it in the blood, because it doesn't matter in a sense how much you take. What matters is the level that you achieve, and we found this in study after study. If there's anything to be learned in addition to that, is that vitamin D works on a daily basis. So people who are not necessarily totally on board with all the findings will sometimes give people vitamin D on a monthly or a weekly basis. And you know what? It does not work. It's a nature of vitamin D3 that it has to be taken daily. It's pretty rapidly metabolized to 25-hydroxyvitamin D and various other metabolites. And unless it's taken on a daily basis, it does not work. And we can say that with great certainty because enough people have tried it to know that doesn't work. Whereas in studies that administer it on a daily basis find an effect, starting with 10,000 IU a day and working out.
What I said to Charlie earlier, Charlie, if you're still there, I said, well, take your 2,500 and take it every 3 days. So, no, it would be better to get a 500 or 1,000 units of D3 and take one every day. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Very good.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you have that. You're making that point, and I agree with it.
Very good.
And just with 2 minutes to the top of the hour, can I ask Dr. Garland, Carolyn, does a person need to take K2 with their vitamin D3?
I'm happy to answer that one first, and others may add. It's a very good idea to do that, particularly for men who have not that many ways of preventing cancer of the prostate or limiting its threat. And so the number one treatment for someone who has prostate cancer to prevent spread and threatening of the life of the patient is enough vitamin D, assuming that whatever surgery was needed has been done. And it's going to work way better, according to some studies in Europe, if there's also vitamin K2 or menaquinone present. So absolutely, we should have both if we can stand taking that many pills. But particularly if you're a man, it's worth it. And it's probably going to be beneficial in women, too.
And do we know the relationship there? What's the ratio or the dose?
Well, normally we're thinking about somewhere between 150 and 250 micrograms per day of vitamin K2, along with whatever the amount of vitamin D you need is to maintain 60 nanograms, which for most people is going to be at least 6,000 IU per day. And for many, it's going to be 10,000 IU. And for some people who are just terrible absorbers of vitamin D, they might need 20,000 IU a day of vitamin D. But the serum test is the way to determine what the dose is, and we're kind of in the dark unless we actually measure the vitamin D in the serum, which isn't so hard anymore.
Okay, we've got 1 minute left. It's been such an extraordinary show. Carolyn, your final thoughts, and then everybody go back and listen to this again. Carolyn, your final thoughts?
My final thoughts. Bob, you're going to be taking your vitamin D, okay? And I'm going to get you some vitamin K, too. Okay. Carol, what? Yeah.
I just am so thankful for all the scientists that I've had the pleasure of working with to help them get the word out. And so be aware, everybody, that the scientists of the world care, and they're doing their best to try to get this message out.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Dr. Garland. Thank you, Ginny.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bill, in the chamber there, making this all happen. And thank you, listeners.
Thank you, everybody.
You've been listening to Dr. Carolyn Dean live radio show. For questions about today's show, email Dr. Dean at questions@drcarolyndeanlive.com.